The Google podcast is sponsored by Hope. It's free, but we make a profit every time you keep on going on when you'd really rather not. Hello, my name's Georgiana, but you can call me Riddle, and welcome to the most super awesome podcast ever. Today, I want to talk about grief around Christmas time. Yes, it's not the most cheery subject, but that's exactly the point. For many of us, Christmas is not this landmark of joy, it's this landmark of dread. It's one of the biggest annual reminders of what we have lost and what we will never get back. I think it's important to share these experiences and perspectives. During my first Christmas, I would have really liked to hear someone else talk about how hard it is, or to even acknowledge it at all. But sometimes it feels like during this time of year, being sad is looked down upon, something that's not allowed or that feels like an inconvenience to the world around us. This applies to things beyond grief as well, of course. There are just certain things that are hard to push aside, but society expects us to, especially around the holiday season. Now obviously I'm not a grief expert or a counsellor of any kind. A random lady talking online is never a replacement for professional help, and I am a huge advocate for grief counselling if it's accessible to you. I'm just going through the same thing. Now that all that has been said, let us continue on. This year will be my third Christmas without my dad, and it still feels nowhere near normal. But looking back at my first Christmas, I can clearly see that I am managing all of the emotions that come along with it a whole lot better. I'll probably still crash nearer to the time, but progress is progress, and no matter how small, it deserves to be celebrated. That first Christmas is a blur now, but I can remember how quiet it was. I can remember feeling so empty. I remember leading up to it, wondering how many Christmas cards we were going to get, and noticing the difference from prior years. There were messages from people we had not heard of in ages, and some from people who were supposed to be ever present that were missing. The next year, there were even less. It felt lonely. It felt like everyone else had found their rhythm again, and we were still left with a dad-shaped hole in our day-to-day lives that was impossible to fill. The difference from the year before was so stark, and that last Christmas feels so foreign to me now. It was bright and sparkling. There was that celebratory fizz in the air, the anticipation sizzled. Festive music echoed throughout the house, and the smell of Dad's famous cooked breakfast wafted through the hallway. But that first Christmas was silent and still. The world was moving, but we were still. Every Christmas wish was met with a frustrated sigh. I asked myself, what's wrong with people? Have they forgotten what I've lost? How could I ever enjoy this day? How dare they? They were unintentionally hurtful. I know now that everyone meant well. Those messages are how we show people we love them on these days. That even if we're not with them, we're thinking of them. A lot of people think that making reference to your loss will make you upset, but the truth is, for me anyway, that ignoring it made me upset. No words will ever take away the grief, and I still struggle to know what to say to people when they lose someone. But it's always better to point out the obvious than to turn a blind eye. A small thinking of you, or I know it's different, makes it feel just that little bit less lonely, a little less shameful. We say grief is normal, but we often treat it like something that should be hidden away, left at the door when you go outside. It's the unmentionable. That's why it's so important to me to be open about it. Hiding it just makes it so much worse. Since losing my dad, Christmas has felt sort of pointless, and the red and green glasses have shattered. Now it's all consumerism and capitalism and commercialised nonsense. I'm so bitter about it. And yeah, Christmas is what you make of it. You have to go back to the meaning of it, but that is so hard when there's someone missing. And honestly, the meaning is just as man-made as the holiday itself. Listen, outside of certain religious contexts, and personally, I'm not religious, so whatever, considering that a whole lot of people don't even celebrate the holiday to begin with, I find it helpful to remember that it's all man-made. There is no inherent obligation to enjoy it or partake in it whatsoever. That feeling of obligation comes from society or something. You didn't sign a contract when you were born promising to praise the jolly old man every day of your life by doing whatever the hell you're supposed to do. You can just not. And you don't ever have to do it again if you don't want to. You can also very much pick and choose the parts you want to partake in. You don't have to give presents or cards. You can also continue buying presents and cards for your lost loved one. You don't have to eat a traditional dinner. You can get a takeaway. You don't even have to celebrate on the right day if you choose to celebrate at all. It's all made up anyway, so make it up your own way. What really sucks is how unavoidable it is. I swear these days the Christmas aisle pops up in September, and when the clock strikes 12 on Halloween, it's all anyone can talk about. Then, come December, it's all over the radio and the television, and every conversation starts with, "So, what are you doing for Christmas this year?" How am I supposed to answer that when I know a huge chunk of it is going to be spent searching for my dad's laughter in the silences, waiting for his smile across the dinner table, wondering what he would have thought of the gift I would have bought him, wrapping my mother's presents on Christmas Eve, expecting him to hand me a piece of tape, only to find he isn't there. There's no one to joke with about how bad I am at wrapping presents anymore. There's no one to scam into buying me a notebook when we're Christmas shopping. No, I'm supposed to just grin and answer vaguely. I'm not sure. The usual. Hearing Christmas music, to me, is what I imagine a medieval army felt like when they heard the galloping of enemy forces racing towards them across the battlefield. So I hardly listen to it anymore. Every song is a picture painted of a Christmas I will not get to experience, a way I should be experiencing it, more pressure, more reminders. I've opened up to it a little this year, but I'd still rather just turn off the radio entirely. My dad was one of those guys who listened to Christmas music all year round, so it's just extra bitter. I went to a show with my family recently, without realising there would be a whole Christmas-themed segment. White Christmas had me in tears. I can only hope the Liza Minnelli impersonator didn't think I was crying because it was bad. It was actually quite good. It just tore my heartstrings apart instead of simply tugging at them. Every day is a constant reminder that there is this big hurdle coming at you and you're going to have to jump over it. Except you know you're not really going to jump over it. You're just waiting to trip. Not to mention, New Year's is right around the corner, a second hurdle ready to catch you by surprise. Next thing you know, you're flat on your face, learning to walk on your own 2 feet all over again. I really wanted to skip Christmas the first year, but I couldn't force my family to do so, hard as I tried. I just sort of zombied my way through it. I couldn't even muster a simple ho ho ho. Sometimes I feel guilty, like I should have made more of an effort, but that's the whole point. You don't have to. My family and I have sort of come to terms with the fact that we are all grieving differently, and we will handle those big hurdles differently. Some of us will avoid it, and some of us will face it head on, and that's okay. There's a lot of external pressure around Christmas time. A lot of people think you should make the most of it, buck up and celebrate because that's what they would have wanted. They mean well, and really, they just want you to get back to normal and live your life as soon as possible because it hurts to see you grieving. But also, it's uncomfortable to see you grieving. We're not used to grief at all, and we really don't give people the time they need to process this huge change. I don't think it's right for people to try and dictate what the one we lost would have wanted us to do. That's just unneeded pressure. If we don't let ourselves grieve and feel the emotions tied to it, it will only come back to bite us later on. That initial heaviness is needed. We need to move through it, move with it. It is an important part of learning to live with it. Don't feel guilty for not celebrating, but also don't feel guilty for celebrating either. If you do manage to find moments of joy and excitement and, dare I say, a little festive spirit, it doesn't mean you love or miss the person you lost any less. There are no shoulds when it comes to grief, period. There are no you should not feel this way or you absolutely should feel this way. There are no you should do this and mostly no you should not do this. I say mostly because obviously there are some unhealthy coping mechanisms out there and I don't want to encourage those. You should feel however you're feeling and you should do what is best for you in the moment. In the same way that you shouldn't let anyone else pressure you into celebrating when you don't want to, don't let anyone else shame you for making the most out of it. This is your grief, not theirs. How you handle it is your business. As long as you're not harming yourself or anyone else, it's completely fine. Christmas is going to be different and it's going to feel weird and strange and sad. You just have to do your best and take it easy. You're not obligated to do anything Christmassy at all. You can find new ways of spending the holidays. Volunteering, for example. It's okay to forget what is traditionally expected of you, and sometimes giving back to your community pulls the focus away from what you're missing and gives you space to breathe. It's fine to want to switch off from it. It's okay not to think about it for a while. Take it minute by minute, hour by hour. Though, time is so warped on days like this that minutes can feel like hours, so take it second by second if you need to. Just be mindful of yourself and your feelings and adjust as needed. It really is hard, but getting out of the house and out of the space where in the context of my dad being gone was most obvious, really helped me the first year. I have a fond memory of going out to afternoon tea with my mum and my aunt and her sister. It just pulled me out of that dreadful fog and I felt a little more ordinary, for a couple of hours at least. This year I'm looking forward to spending New Year's with extended family at a restaurant. We didn't do that even when my dad was here. It's different enough that I will not be focused on what is missing so much. It's important not to isolate yourself, but it's so easy to isolate yourself. This is where I think other people on the outside looking in can really make a difference. Small gestures make the world of a difference at times like these. Just letting someone know you're there for them and you want to be there for them is monumental. The easiest way to support someone is to ask them how, but honestly, sometimes when we're so fresh in this grief, we don't even know how we want to be supported. So I say it's nice to be met where you're at. Letting someone know that they are not forgotten, because it really can feel that way, is paramount. One of the worst parts about grief at Christmas is feeling like the world has moved on and you're just left in this horrible grey area. Don't push them to do things they're not ready for. Grief has its own pace for everyone. Grief is different for everyone. Sometimes you just have to make yourself known. Keep pushing through and hopefully, eventually, the person you're trying to support will meet you halfway and welcome it. Just be there, be present, and remind them that you are. All hope is not lost. While I still find Christmas to be a sad, bitter, capitalistic mess, I'm starting to look forward to it just a little bit. It hasn't been easy and I'm still expecting a huge dip, but it's something. And I want to take a bit of time to talk about the ways that I am managing to do this. Honestly, food has been a huge motivator for me this year, last year too. Finding some recipes to try last year gave me a sense of purpose and something to look forward to during the quiet moments. I tried making some honey roasted parsnips and carrots and attempted a viral roast potato recipe that went down like a treat. Unfortunately, they were Parmesan potatoes and I can no longer eat cheese. I still do eat cheese, but I really just should not. I feel very rebellious when I do, but it's not rebelling against the big man, just my stomach, so it's way less empowering really. I'm hoping to try making my own nut roast sometime this year and doing a bit of baking too. Focusing on my friends and loved ones is another thing that is getting me through this year. Gift giving has always been a huge joy for me, and this year I've poured a lot of thought into what I want to get for my family and friends, and have been so excited to go buy cards and trinkets for them. A lot of my friends live overseas, so it will take a while to get to them. And that delay is actually helpful because I have something beyond Christmas to look forward to, and that's hearing what they thought about these gifts. Putting my energy into making someone else happy or excited, if even for a moment, I guess it's just grounding and pulls my focus from the internal into the external. The last point is sort of bittersweet. I'm putting a lot of focus into appreciating how lucky I am to still have the family I do have. I spent the last 2 years thinking so much about how I didn't have my dad anymore, I almost forgot about the people that are still here. Losing him has put things into perspective in so many different ways. For better or for worse, I'm now acutely aware of how short life is. I want to make the most out of these Christmases with my mum and my brother. I want to be as present as possible with them, whether that be by forcing them to play Cluedo or humouring my mum by wearing a ridiculous hat. Well, we've reached the end of the episode. I hope you got something out of this episode, even if it's just feeling a little less alone. Though my festive season is tainted with grief, I'm happy to say I can now imagine a future where I hear the familiar chords that herald Mariah Carey's annual defrosting and not be filled with a sense of immense dread. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. The journey there may be full of twists and turns, but we get there in the end. Sending you the strength you need to get through this season, even if you're not grieving, because, hey, we all have something going on, even if it's just suffering through a dinner with problematic relatives or having to work on Christmas Eve. Good luck to us all. Thank you for taking your time to listen to this podcast, and you can go now. Seriously, please go. I'm kind of tired and I would really like a nap. I'm exhausted. Just go already. Click off. Go out the door. Close your yeah, okay, yeah, thanks. Bye.